Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt the conversations. My name's Elena Hartley and I'm a USC Economics alumna of the class of 2016. I'm here to welcome you on behalf of the USC Women in Economics Alumni Board to our first ever Women in Economics student reception. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to be here with us. While I was at USC, I co-founded a group called the Undergraduate Economics Association because I saw this huge opportunity to connect the USC econ ecosystem. Everyone from students to alumni to professors, and really strengthen the bonds that we have as a department here at USC and beyond. I'm excited to see that the Econ Association has grown and developed since I left. Current President Haley Ordahl is here tonight. Raise your hands so everyone can see. This group is a really great resource for you. It has everything from support and opportunities to meet other students, along with company tours, internship opportunities, research, everything you could want. So if you're not on the mailing list, definitely connect with Haley. So now that I'm an alumna, I serve on the USC Women in Economics Alumni Board. This board was founded by Deborah Sr., along with Tiffany Akeda and Arianna Ozzanto. Could you raise your hands? Great. So the purpose of this newly established group is to address the gender disparity in the field of economics. And so really what we do is we unite and support women, both students and as alumni, we support each other. STEM, or science, technology, engineering, and math, majors and career fields have historically been male-dominated spaces, and with econ that's no different. Still, in 2019, men outnumber women 3-to-1 in undergraduate economics programs. But we want you to know that we're really proud to have you as part of this community, and we are here as alumni to support you through your academic and your career progression, and that we just want you to feel really excited to be a part of this major, and we're excited for what's ahead of you. So I'd like a quick round of applause for all the amazing students here tonight. We're really grateful to have Deborah Sr. here with us this evening to moderate a panel of USC women who are alumni of our econ program. Deborah received her PhD here at USC, after which she spent 20 years as the vice president at Toyota Motor North America, where she led marketing, brand, and product strategy. Later on, she attained a master's in nonprofits and now dedicates her time full-time to a number of different nonprofit boards and really advancing the well-being of women. We're really excited to have her with us tonight, along with some really great alumni to have a discussion. Deborah, I'd love to turn it over to you to introduce our panelists and kick off our night. Thank you.
That was great, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, everybody. We're very excited, this being our inaugural event. And really the reason that we are all here is because we believe in the power of an education in economics. So what better way to illustrate that than to hear firsthand from a number of alums who are here tonight. And they represent a wide variety of professions, a wide variety of industries, and they are also at various points in the stages of their careers. So what we'd like to do is, first of all, have a conversation with our panelists. Then we will open it up to Q&A for the room. And then finally, what we'll do is we'll have an opportunity for you to come back and regroup at the tables, and you can introduce yourself to alums who are in professions or fields of your interest. And so we encourage you to engage with all of the alums who are here tonight, as well as your fellow students, because tonight we are here for you. So with that, if I could introduce our panelists. First we have Serineh Baghdasarian, who is Senior Counsel at Schlar Kirsch. And why don't we come over here? You can come and join me. Let's see, we have, where's Mary Hamzoian. She is the Economic Development Manager at the City of Burbank. Welcome, Mary. Great. And where is Vijeta? Hi, Vijeta Tandon. She is a Senior analyst at Cornerstone Research, and Arianna Ozzanto. She is the CFO at Sag-Aftra. Welcome. Thank you. So what we'd like to do is to ask our alums and our panelists to share a bit about their story and their career path. And to start off with, we wanted to ask, how did you decide to major in economics? Serineh.
All right, sorry. So I decided to major in economics. I always knew that I wanted to go to law school. That was a path that was clear to me from the beginning. I didn't want. I was very strong in my analytic skills and my math skills. I didn't want to do the maths, and I didn't want to have a fluffy major. So one of the reasons that economics appealed to me was because it was a substantive major that led to so many career options. It didn't pigeonhole me into any field, and later on in my career, it really did open a lot of doors for me. And I also, thought at the time and learned later that economics is a field that really gives you the tools that just teach you about life in general. And every decision that you make in your life comes down to some kind of economic analysis. And although we all, make this cost-benefit analysis in everything we do, the tools, the vocabulary that you put to these decisions, to opportunity cost and everything that you do, is something that was very valuable. I can give some examples later, but I'll let the other panelists weigh in on why they chose economics.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think my thought process was very similar. Economics kind of appealed to me as a major that I felt like left me with a lot of broad options, but at the same time, the way that the curriculum or the credit requirements are structured, it also kind of allows you to pick your own sort of path within economics. I think that you can make it certainly more quantitative if you want to, but at the same time, for a while, for example, I thought I wanted to do something more along the sort of public policy IR route, so I took a more sort of political economy focused classes, and I think that having those options really kind of benefited me because I was able to round out my curriculum and kind of choose the path that I wanted to within economics.
So I actually started out as a business major, and probably the second semester into my junior year, I really had to do a reevaluation, getting that close to graduation and not really finding an emphasis in the school that I really enjoyed. I took accounting classes, didn't particularly care for them, thought maybe I wanted to go the marketing route, wasn't satisfied with that. There was a class in the business school that was pretty difficult. I don't know if they still use this vocabulary, but it was a weeder class. And I was pretty terrified because I had not done very well in my AP Econ class in high school, didn't really like it, but found with this class that I loved it. And I did well, inexplicably so. I couldn't figure out why. So I thought, well, maybe this is a new path that has opened up for me. I talked to the professor and I said, do you think this is something I could do? So I, made a bold change and I switched my major second semester of my junior year. And so when everybody was taking, fun elective classes, the history of the Beatles, and my elective classes were calculus, statistics, accounting, A and B. And I never looked back. It was something that I really enjoyed. I was terrified, but with each midterm and grade, I gained more and more confidence and really saw that this was a foundation that I could use to explore a lot of things that I may be open to in terms of my career.
So similar to Arianna, I came in as an undecided major because I wanted to be a pharmacist. And so I came in wanting to be a pharmacist, took my first biology class and was devastated and never wanted to touch science again. So with that, as an undergrad, I was still trying to figure out whether I wanted to be a business major, whether I wanted to even touch accounting because that was so far from anything I ever wanted to do. I took some undergrad macro and micro econ classes, and just like you, I did extremely well. And so I realized very quickly that it was very comparable to a field that I would be interested in, whether it was business, whether it was real estate, whether it was marketing, whatever I really wanted to ultimately pursue, it was transferable into all of those different areas and expertise. And so I think it was my sophomore year, I ultimately switched to econ, and I did really well in all of the classes, and there were a wide variety of different areas that I could focus on, whether it was urban economics or focus more on econometrics and statistics. And so with that, I was able to, apply it to every day, supply and demand. Do I want to buy a house? Is the housing market currently where it needs to be? Can I afford a car? It's very applicable to real life. And so I think that's what really was the factor and why I chose economics.
Great. And could you tell us, maybe start with you, Mary, a little bit about what your job is, what it is that you do, and a little bit about how you got there?
Sure. So I do economic and business development for the city of Burbank. I've been in the government sector now for about 14 years. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would want to work for the public sector because it was way too bureaucratic for me. But luckily, the position that I'm in currently, I get to do a lot of interesting and fun things, and my economics degree has definitely prepared me for the task, because while it's very analytic and research and data driven, it's also very qualitative in terms of behavior and how things are happening in the city and demographics and who your market is and who your target audience is. And so every day is something different and something new, but ultimately my task for the city is to bring an investment to the city, however that may be, whether it's bringing businesses in, whether it's bringing development in, whether it's bringing jobs in, whether it's bringing tourists in. So if you don't think that tourism is economics, you're wrong. It's a huge sector of economics because tourists spend more than the average person who lives here. So consumer spending increases, hotel bed tax increases, tax that's, transient parking tax increases. So there's all these different taxes that increase as a result of bringing in more tourists to your area, as well as bringing in more jobs and employees. So that's ultimately what we do. And I also have the pleasure of marketing and promoting the city. So that's also another really cool aspect of economic development, that it's important, again, that you understand who your demographic is and who your target audience is, and that you appeal to them and try to bring in that demographic to your city.
Great, thank you. Vijeta, do you want to tell everyone what you do?
Sure. So I work as an economic litigation consultant. Basically what that means is that we consult for lawyers. So when you hear in the news like Apple sued Samsung and they're being awarded $600 million, basically where does that number come from, right? What's the kind of modeling that goes on behind it? So we sort of provide the quantitative support to legal matters in that sense. And I got my job, so I was, a USC student just like you guys, the on-campus recruiting program that they do through the Career Center. So I basically interned at where I work now my junior year, like summer after junior year, and then kind of came back full time. So definitely a big proponent of, going to events like these and taking advantage of Career Center resources. In fact, the first time that I heard about economic litigation consulting was at a very similar kind of alumni and econ panel. So this is definitely super full circle for me, and would be happy to chat with anyone who's interested in this type of field.
Great, thank you. Serineh, do you want to talk about what you do?
Sure. I'm a transactional real estate attorney. Straight from USC, I went to law school, and after graduating, I started at a big firm in downtown. I'm currently at a boutique firm. Along the way, I had opportunities to join hedge funds, I almost started a JD MBA program at USC. So definitely my economics background was a key to opening those doors for me. What I do now as a transactional real estate attorney is I help put deals together, real estate deals. So if a client is buying a 130 unit complex, first we'll negotiate the purchase documents to make sure that if you're the buyer, you're getting the protections and the representations to protect you. And then my favorite part is putting the money together. So they're going out, the client is going out to various sources, whether it's friends and family or it's an institutional investor, getting money together and documenting that whole process. Okay, if I find the deal and you bring the money, what happens at the end? Who gets money out first? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if we make a lot? What if we don't make anything? So really just documenting and negotiating the deal. Also the financing of it, getting a loan from the lender, and then later leasing it out. So it's very interesting. It's very tangible. You get to see what you're working on, at least if you're working on local stuff, and it's something that I really enjoy.
Great. Arianna, you're in corporate finance.
I am for a not-for-profit. So I am the CFO for Sag-Aftra, which you may not be familiar with, but if I said SAG or the Screen Actors Guild, that may be something that you would recognize. So we're a labor union that represents people both in front of the camera and behind a microphone, so broadcasters, actors, stunt people. We have about 165,000 members. And although the majority of my job is pretty traditional for what you would think a CFO would do, I also have a pretty big hand in the operations of the union. So I built a call center to service our members, from the ground up. I've managed, in addition to an initial compensation, actors are entitled to a residual, which is essentially every time their work plays, they get a payment. I manage that department. The role of the CFO is really evolving, and it isn't what it was 20 years ago. But I still have those traditional. I'm in charge of the accounting department, all of the reporting, our investment portfolio, payroll, anything that you would think a typical CFO does falls under me. We have 15 offices across the country. I'm responsible for finding their locations, moving them, renegotiating their lease terms, and things like that.
Great. So you have an interesting story how you changed out of the business school, and I'm sure many of our students are interested in hearing about how did you learn the finance side and how did you use your economic knowledge to get on that path?
So as I was telling the girls at the table, I really think that it is a great foundation. It teaches you so much discipline, analytic skills, how to reason through something. You aren't going to learn exactly what you need when you get a job from your major, but it provides a good foundation, and I think the confidence that you can reason through something. My first foray was into corporate financing and financial planning, and I hopped around to various different companies. But I remember when I got hired at SAG, the CFO at the time was a USC alum, not an econ major, but made a point to say to me, I really like that you have an econ degree. It separates you from all the other applicants that I've seen that have either been an accounting major or a finance major. You're really a lot more well-rounded, I think, than most of them. And I got the job. I mean, I agreed with him. And I think that, especially here where the Marshall School is so big, I think we get a little bit overshadowed. But he was right, it teaches you so much more than T accounts that accounting does. That's easy to learn, but that knowledge that you can apply with such depth is something that I think that econ is really the only thing that can provide you with that.
Great. Mary, how did you get, what was your path from undergrad to where you are today? You had some different jobs as well. So.
I did. So after getting an econ degree, my path led me a little differently. So it depends on where you are in your career. It depends on where you are in your personal life. So I actually got married at a very young age. So right after I graduated and I had kids, so I had to kind of put my career path on hold for a little bit before, going back into the industry. But within the first couple of years after I had graduated, I again didn't know I wanted to go into government, and I saw an analyst's job in the city that I lived in, which was the city of Burbank. And it was fairly similar to what I had already learned in econ, so I thought, hey, why not? I'll give it a shot. And obviously at that time, master's degrees were a really big thing back in 2002, 2003. Not a lot of people had a master's degree. So I was actually competing up against people who had master's degree, and I was coming in with the bachelor's in economics. So I did have the work experience previously. I worked in a pharmacy. As I mentioned, I wanted to be a pharmacist. But I did have the practical knowledge to work as an analyst because I did have the economics background. So I've been there for 14 years, and I've been in this position for over 10 years. So I was able to really quickly move up within the organization. And I worked in a department where there was an economic development section. And so I quickly gravitated towards that section because it was really what I was passionate about and what interested me, and I could really apply what I had learned in that area. And so with that, the rest is history, and I've been there, like I mentioned, 14 years. So.
Great. Vijeta, can you talk a little bit about your transition from being a student? And one of the things we also wanted to talk about tonight was leadership. So obviously we're talking about economics, but also how can we prepare ourselves, position ourselves for leadership in the future, whether it's a position in leadership leading a department or an organization, or perhaps just leadership in your field, excelling in your field. Do you have some thoughts on that?
So I think one of the things in terms of transitioning from college to the working world, one of the key differences is that in the working world, I think that you get less regular feedback. So one thing you're used to as a college student is basically, I'm studying for this test and I take this midterm, I know I'm getting an A in this class, and so I know I'm doing well. But when you transition to the working world, yes, you have reviews or kind of formalized systems, but it can feel a little overwhelming at first because you're learning a lot of new things, and it's not like you sort of have to walk that fine line between, yes, it's okay to ask for interim feedback, but at the same time, you don't want to be sort of overwhelmingly always asking someone how you're doing. And I think a big part of being a leader is sort of growing comfortable with that uncertainty, and especially when you begin your job. I think one of the things that I really had to learn was it's okay, even if you're the youngest person in the room, or even if you're the most inexperienced person in the room, you have to sort of have that confidence to be able to speak up and trust that, okay, the ideas that I have are valuable and I should share them. I think that there are, for example, I've had case team meetings where there are managers who may have seen a look of hesitation on my face and been nice enough to sort of call on me and be like, oh, Vijeta, it looks like you have a question, but that's not always going to happen. And that's something that was advice or feedback that I received really early on, don't be afraid to sort of share your voice. And I think especially as women, sometimes we can be a little bit timid in doing that, but it's really important to not do that basically and just trust. It's okay to say something. You don't have to feel like, you don't have to feel like, oh, I 100% am the expert on this and that's the only time that I'm allowed to speak up. That's certainly not the case. You sort of have to advocate and stand up for yourself. And I think that's a lot of what being a leader is about, is it's not just an assigned role, it's just how you conduct yourself kind of no matter what situation you're in.
Great. And Serineh, you had some great leadership advice to share.
So I think I'm going to echo a little bit of what Vijeta said. To me, leadership comes in two places. One is the confidence that you exude, because you could know everything in the world, or you could not know that much, but nobody's going to know what you know unless you project that. Unless you project a certain amount of confidence in yourself, your abilities. As you guys navigate your careers, make an effort. Some people are just naturally that way and some aren't. But I think, women tend to be more timid and more shy. And I think if you can, I don't know if this is just something people are born with, but it should be something that we should be able to notice and push ourselves past. So one is to find a way, and I think some of the panelists we were talking earlier had some great feedback on how you do that. And one of the ways is to become an expert in your field. It could be one little thing that you know really well, and that you become the go-to person to. But anything like that where you can find a niche is great. And then secondly, other than exuding confidence, I think the other important thing in getting to a leadership position is to kind of position yourself properly within any organization, and understanding that getting to a certain position is not just all about what you know, and it's also about getting there. And in order to get there, you have to navigate politics, and you have to align yourself with the right people. So early on in your career, if you can try to think about that, rather than just being so focused on what's in front of me and how do I get through this. Yes, that's important. That's the most important, because if you don't do that, you're not getting anywhere. But also, as you progress through your career and as you have these things handled, really thinking big picture about, okay, what are the politics of my organization, and where do I need to position myself? Because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, it really does come to, I guess unfortunately, it really does come to relationships and positioning.
Great, thank you. Mary, you had some thoughts on leadership and also mentioning an environment where not a lot of women. How would you approach that?
Sure, so just to echo on what Serineh said, one piece of advice that I can give you is no matter what position you're in, whether it's entry level or whether you just started or whether you're working at Starbucks as a barista, be the expert in your field. It's really, really important, because when you are the expert in what you do, you're that go-to person. And so that already will exude confidence in you, and people will look at you, whether it's your colleagues or whether it's your supervisor, they'll look at you in a different light because they know that you're the expert in that matter. And when they need that information, they're going to come to you. So that in itself will position you for future opportunities. Something else that I can highly recommend is if you do work in the public sector or not-for-profit sector, the motto is we're always working with less, and we never have more. So if you can take on more responsibilities, if you can take on more projects, if you can show that you're interested in doing more than what your job description is, that always shows who the leader is in the organization and who wants to move forward in the organization. So I can't stress that enough, that obviously keep your work-life balance, that's definitely important, but also be ambitious and go to different managers and learn about what they're doing and try to figure out where it is that you want to go. I recently had an employee that was promoted and left because instead of economic development, she decided to work on the homeless plan for the city. And that really showed that she was interested in doing different aspects, and so she was able to promote and go to a higher position. So my advice to you would be to really step outside of your boundaries and kind of push yourself to learn new things, and that really shows who the next leaders are of the organization. In terms of advice for females, one example that I can give you is, economics is still a very male-dominated field. So is real estate, and so is finance. And so every year I attend a conference, International Council of Shopping Centers. It's a massive conference with 30,000 people in Las Vegas. And when you walk into the convention center, it's a sea of men. They're all men. They're all men wearing the same, no offense, Professor Khan, blue blazer jackets, the uniform in the real estate industry and the developer industry. And you get intimidated the first couple of years when you go as a female because you are definitely the minority there. But again, it goes back to if you know what you know, then that is powerful. Because you can sit there with a developer who's probably twice your age and talk about the importance of the city and the demographics that you have and why you think their development should come to your city. and they will respect you. After they're done looking at you, they will respect you for who you are and the knowledge that you have. And if you can back up the data and you know the statistics and you know what you're talking about, it's very powerful. So that would be my advice to you. Don't be intimidated. It may be difficult, but that goes away with experience and definitely knowledge.
Thank you. Arianna, you had a lot of experience trying different things early in your career, and how would you say that helped position you to be a leader?
So first, I agree with everything that the panelists said, but I can really relate to what Mary said. I think one of the things that can set you apart is opportunity, right? So seizing every opportunity or creating one when it doesn't present itself. But that really set me apart. I was willing to do things that weren't necessarily in my job description, but would benefit the organization. When I first started working, there was a movement from a lot of proprietary financial systems onto larger systems. And what I did almost at every job I had prior to the one at SAG was I worked on those system implementation, and there was not a lot of people. You either had system experience or accounting experience, but that blend was missing. And so that was one thing I was able to learn with each of those things. So when I had gone to SAG, there was a system, but they really weren't using it to the nth degree. So I was able to use a lot of that knowledge and kind of transform the organization. It was it's a non-for-profit, but they could really benefit from a more business-oriented type environment. I had worked at Fortune 100 companies, and so I was able to use that experience. And while they still wanted to maintain that union feel and that non-for-profit environment, you can't ignore, business is business and everything is bottom line driven. So that was what I had learned at each of those places that I was able to kind of transcend into this role here. At the union, I started as a business analyst in 2004. And there was a lot of opportunity that didn't necessarily exist, but I saw ways that I could improve some of the things that the union was doing. And thankfully they recognized it. It wasn't something that I really had to fight for. I was fortunate in that they were very forthcoming with recognition, and it just kind of progressed. And it's all of those things that everyone on the panel mentioned, but it's timing too. I was 30 when I was the CFO, promoted for the first time as the CFO for SAG. And theoretically, the CFO before me could have been there another 20 years. And I would still be, whatever it was, whatever position I had before that. So it is a timing issue too. But I would say that, a barometer, while you're right, you don't get constant feedback, something internal that you can kind of use as a measurement is if you're feeling comfortable, you need to push yourself outside that comfort zone, right? Because that you get too complacent and, you feel like, this is easy or I'm comfortable here. That's not what's going to get you to the next level.
Good. Now, Serineh, you've had several different professions in your career. Could you talk a little bit about how economics served you in those different fields or making those transitions?
Sure. I've actually only had two, so I started, I guess in my college years, my sister and I were working for Kaplan. We were teaching their SAT classes, and after a while they gave us their keys, and I was opening on Saturdays and she was opening on Sundays. She's my twin sister. So we said, this doesn't make a lot of economic sense. They're paying us $15 an hour. They're charging everybody, I don't know, $70 an hour or maybe $50, $60 an hour once you do the math. We're doing all the work. They like us so much that they've given us the keys and they've just disappeared. So yes, it's their curriculum, but we're kind of controlling this right here. So we decided, okay, this doesn't make sense. So we started our own program. We had a lot of students from our own just over the years we had taught, and so we came up with a marketing plan, and in our junior year started ScoreMax, which was a college admissions prep program. And so we said, okay, look, our time is limited. We have to allocate our time. And right now I'm tutoring 5 different people, and I'm running around from this person to that person to that person. Let's, we have all these connections. Let's group them together. Let's bring them in one, and let's rent a place, and let's have this program. So we were able to, triple and quadruple the number of students that we were able to teach because, we came up with this plan to allocate our time in a different way. So I did that in college, and then, the plan was always to go to law school. It was just something I always thought I wanted to do. I went to law school, and while I was there, for the first time in my life, I freaked out and said, oh my God, I don't think I want to do law. But it is what it is. I'm already here. I had already decided that I wasn't going to do the JD MBA. I had kind of turned that down. So I took a class in the real estate master's program at Columbia. And then one day there was a internship assistant to general counsel position. So they sent it out to the whole, all the business journal students, which was maybe like 400 students. I applied, and the guy called me in, whatever, we interviewed, and he liked me. I didn't like him at all. I thought I would never work for this guy because he was just arrogant. Just you could tell he wasn't a good guy. But as part of this process, I had to move on to the CEO, and the CEO looked at my resume. I had been to the London School of Economics. I had spent a year there. I had an economics background. I had very strong SAT math scores. I had done the ScoreMax. So he said, what are you doing? Why are you going to law school? Why are you going to be a lawyer? Come work for me. This was a hedge fund. Come work for me, not at that intern legal job, but as a hedge fund analyst. So really, I was like, wow, this background in economics, even though now I'm in law school and I think I don't want to do law anymore, and I feel like I'm stuck. Everything that I did up to this point, and the fact that I didn't do, not that I ever considered this, but I didn't do something like sociology or psychology, the fact that I did something like economics is now opening these doors for me. I decided not to pursue that for several reasons. The biggest one being I only wanted to stay in New York maybe another 2 years after graduation, and I thought, what's the future in LA for the financial, for the hedge fund world? There is no future, and I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m. to follow the market. So I came to LA and worked at a law firm. And after 4.5 years, real estate just got destroyed, and the entire department was, all of real estate pretty much throughout LA and nationally was destroyed. So at that time I had 2 kids, and I decided to start ScoreMax again. So I created new curriculum, hired instructors. Obviously this time it was a more sophisticated business because I had more experience and more resources. So I ran that program for about 3.5 years, and then the test was completely being overhauled and changed, and my kids were growing older, and so when I had this itch to go back to law firm life, so I switched. I went back to law, and I just took a different position. Instead of being at a big firm, I'm at a boutique firm. Still do the same type of work, just work on smaller deals. So it's interesting. My economics background, my analytical background, even though I'm not an economist, even though I'm not a consultant, even though I'm not a finance person, and even though I never use supply-demand curves in my job, it's really served me well. And I think as a lawyer, you need 2 skills. You need strong writing, and you need strong thinking. And the econ takes care of or at least helps feed the critical thinking. So.
You also had some good examples about how economics is helpful in your life beyond your career.
Yeah. Well, my twin sister was also an econ major. She was at a different school. She was at UCLA. And so I called her actually when I first met Alice, and I said, hey, how do you feel about majoring in economics? We both liked it. It was just something we both liked. She said it was the best decision I ever made. And I couldn't really think why, and she said it, and I'm like, oh yeah. She said it's the only, and she majored in business economics, accounting, and political science. And I did political science, economics, and a minor in business. So we've done a couple different things. And she said, out of everything that we've learned, it's the most practical, and the most, it's the only thing that's given me tools. And I said, what kind of tools? She said, you know, the concept of opportunity cost, the concept of allocation of resources, the concept of diminishing marginal returns. These are things that we use in our life all the time. Everybody uses them, whether you know it or not. It's just that sometimes when you understand the concept, when you put a vocabulary to it, you bring it to the forefront of your mind and you're able to make better decisions. The simplest thing, like graduating from law school, I didn't have that much debt. Most people's first thing is, I'm gonna pay off all my debt. I just don't wanna have any debt. I didn't do that. I said, okay, I graduated in 2006. Interest rates were very, very low at that time. So, you know, I said, okay, what are my options? I'm making the money. I can either pay it off or I can invest this money, and as long as I make more than the 2.5% rate that I'm paying, then this is a winning proposition. So, you know, really just making a smart decision and thinking, okay, is the best use of this resource to pay off this 2.5% rate, or is it, and feel, you know, light, or is it to understand that, okay, it's okay to have that loan because I'm actually using this money, the government's money that they've given me at 2.5%, to invest it at 6%, 7%, or whatever it is. And then when the investment stops, realizing, oh wait a minute, if my money's just sitting there, now I'm losing, because now the opportunity cost of not investing this money is the 2.5% or 3% that I'm paying. So, you know, just how to, you know, the diminishing marginal returns. I think as women, as we go through life, we will have to make tough decisions, unfortunately, in our careers. And it really comes down to, you know, the marginal return in your life, whether that's a financial number, you know, depending on your financial situation with your spouse or partner, understanding whether that money's worth it, or whether it's, you know, some emotional, value-based thing that you're giving up. So I really think it's just a fascinating field, and it's something that really opens, you know, a lot of doors, and is so broad, in a way that I can't think of any other major that is like that.
Great. I think we all have more questions, but I wanted to open it up. Any students have any questions that you'd like to ask? Anyone? Great. Okay, one question I heard from some students is, if you could go back to your, talk to your early 20s self, what advice would you tell your early 20s self?
Who's the other good one?
I'd say don't be afraid. You know, I think fear, looking back on it, has stopped me from doing a lot of things that now as I get older, I don't care, you know? But I would say don't be afraid. You know, don't do stupid things. Make a calculated decision about your fear. You know, you shouldn't be, you're not invincible, but really don't let fear hold you back.
I think I would tell myself to be open to new opportunities, and always, you know, keep an open mind. And just because you don't think that you should be in a certain sector or you should be in a certain job, don't let that keep you from pursuing that and doing that. So I think just be open to different opportunities and see where it takes you.
I'm 25, so I guess I could give some college advice. I guess echoing the sentiment, I would say that I think that, you know, don't say no to opportunities. Like, I think there's like a book on like the power of saying yes or something like that. So I think it's important to apply that, you know, while I think college it's great that all of you are, you know, thinking about your careers and doing all these things, but also don't forget to have fun and kind of, you know, you only have 4 years, so make the best of them.
On the fun side, absolutely, fun is, you know, a part of what you guys have right now that you don't even realize. You know, as you grow older, it's a different type of fun, but the experiences you guys have now will disappear. So embrace it, enjoy it. I guess one thing, for those of you who are going to apply to graduate school, and if it ever comes down to a decision about a choice you have to make about whether to go to this school and that school, I now think you always go for the better school, the better rank, the better reputation. I had an opportunity at a certain law school to get a full ride, a guaranteed job at a big firm after my first summer, and I didn't take it. And because I had I wanted like a sexier school, a better school. When I stepped away from law firm life for 4 years, one day I decided I want to go back, one day. And the next day I put up a resume, and the next day I had a job. And I can't help but think that that's because of, a big part of that was my schooling and then where that led me. I'm sure I would have ended up in the same place, but 10 years down the line, in the beginning it doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter. Whether you go to UCLA Law School or Harvard Law School, it doesn't matter. But I think 10 years down the line, these things matter. And one of my cousins recently had a similar decision to make. She had to take on a lot of debt to go to the better school. And she's there now, and it's a great, great decision for her, and it's going to serve her in her career. So my thought is now, after seeing what I've seen, it does matter. So if any of you are in that situation where you have to pick between two things, and one is more convenient and maybe cheaper, and the other one's a little bit more expensive, you have to take on more debt. My experience is that it's worth it.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much. Oh yes, a question.
So since pretty much everyone in this room were all econ majors, I wanted to know if any of you, minored in something that was completely diverse from economics, like art or art history or like communications of some sort, or something to do with science. How has, if you have minored, how has that helped you with looking into different perspectives of performing tasks and just doing your job on a daily basis?
That's a great question. I'll actually chime in on this one too. So I was not very balanced as a student in high school. I was all math. I did not have strong verbal skills. I was very unbalanced. So when I went to college, I didn't want to do any more math though, or be an engineer. I was burned out on that. So economics was great because it was a way I could use some math, but use much more interesting, more relevant problem solving. But I also liked a lot of other things, and what I ended up doing was doing a double major in history. And I found that through history, I really developed my writing skills. So, when I was in high school, like literature, English classes, I don't know, I wasn't really able to write well. And so that writing skill has been huge and, helped me balance out a lot of things, including my future work in economics, as well as, all different kinds of other jobs. Anyone else?
Well, kind of related. I waited quite a while to go back and get my master's in business administration. And I didn't do public policy because I thought it was important for me as an economics major working with the business sector to learn more about the business sector. So I kind of veered off into the MBA program, and we're there you learn about marketing and finance and accounting and IT and all those different aspects. And I think it just makes you stronger. So if you have a good foundation in economics, I think no matter what else you do, it's only going to add to that. So right now, it's very timely. I'm going to go back to the kind of give yourself some advice. I've been interviewing people for an analyst job at the city most recently. I've reviewed about 300 applications. And of course, I throw the ones that say UCLA. But I've been looking at the majors that a lot of these students have, and while they have a lot of experience in schooling, they don't have a lot of experience in the real world. And so it's very important for you to have that balance. It's equally as important for you to have work experience, because while you may have an amazing major in economics, and while you may have another master's in MBA right after school, if you don't have the experience to back it up, it's really difficult to find a career and find a job. So I've been looking at a lot of positions, a lot of sociology majors, a lot of history majors, a lot of art majors, and really it doesn't have the foundational background that economics does. So if you're considering going to sociology or psychology and you still want to pursue a career in the private sector or the public sector, I would stick to economics.
I double majored in political science and econ. And why did I do political science? Because I thought that's the major for law school. And honestly, in retrospect, I don't think I learned anything. I mean, to me, you know, it was just whatever, you're reading about stuff. It was almost like history. So I can't say that. I can't say the same about economics. And I'm not trying to push the major, but it's really how I feel.
Great, thank you. So I think we are ready now to have dinner. So what we're going to do is if everyone can grab a plate, and then as you can see, we have put labels out on each of the tables for different professions, and all of you have on your table a list of the alums who are here, including the positions that they have and the organizations, the industries that they're in. So look for an alum that is in a field of your interest, and then once you get your plate, you can come have a seat, and I would encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity. And if you'd help me thank all of our alums, including our panelists, this was fantastic. Thank you so much.